A guest on Fox thinks that he has the answer to all of our problems with assaults and other crimes, and it's basically having teachers go back to assaulting their kids. Take a look.
These parents need to be held accountable. Every single one of these kids that's out there terrorizing the streets has a parent that needs to be held accountable. Enough is enough, Rachel. We got to fix the family in this nation.
So how do we do that? I mean, you say, let's make the parents accountable. Those are broken families. A lot of cases, we don't even know where the dad is. Maybe the dad is in prison himself. So what's the answer? I mean, I know you have your Jack Brewer Foundation. You work with kids after school, but there's no substitute for a family. What can the government do? What can the culture do? How do we start this? It seems almost impossible.
It starts locally. First off, in these schools have to start back disciplining kids. They took the paddle out of the school and everything collapsed. We got to get the paddle back, Rachel. Listen, corporal punishment is the only way when you have a knucklehead kid that's willing to rob you or me at gunpoint with a car full of kids or anyone else. You see, these things don't happen in states like Florida. You know why? Because if you carjack me, I'm liable to shoot you, no matter what your age is. And that happens in red states.
Yep, that's why famously there's no crime in red states. That's, of course, sarcasm. There is, and gun violence is higher in red states, perhaps because of the philosophy that you just saw right there. You're actually far more likely to be shot and killed in those red states. But anyway, there's a lot there. So the parents should be responsible. If your kid is out there running amok, the parent should be held liable. Now, don't worry, okay, Lauren Boebert, that isn't actually how the law works right now. So you're fine, you're not gonna be locked up for what your kid does. But that's what he wants. And what's the answer? There's only one: bring back the paddle. That's it. In the history of humanity, across space and time, there's only been one thing that stops crime, and that's teachers hitting kids, I guess. By the way, have you ever noticed the weird psychological experience you have of watching Fox News when it comes to teachers? So you will go show to show being told, we need to let these teachers spank the kids. They need to paddle them, take down their pants and just beat their butts. Also, every one of them is a pervert trying to have sex with your kids. They're all perverts. They all want to have sex with your kids, and we should allow them to paddle the bottoms of those kids. And also they're perverts and they're very scary and we shouldn't trust them. So which exactly is it? Like, I personally would prefer that my teacher never hit my kid in any context. I also don't think that they're likely to be rapists, but I don't want them to hit the kid. It's a strange relationship right there. That said, he has a little bit more to say, and there's all of the classic scapegoats being trotted out again. Take a look.
But when you take the Second Amendment away from so many citizens in these liberal cities, they can't protect themselves. And so now these kids that don't have a fear of God, they're emboldened by the culture, by the music that they listen to, by the movies that they watch, by the culture that they take into their spirit, right? None of these kids go to church on Sunday morning. These kids don't have a fear of God. These kids don't think about heaven and hell. And that's the problem in our nation. We've let these liberals go so deep into removing God from schools. Now these kids don't have spirituality. We got to put the 10 Commandments back in our schools. We got to get the fear of God back into the children of America, particularly the young black boys that look just like me and my son, where 71% of these kids are born without a father in a home. Every black man in America should feel despicable about the reality that our culture right now is terrorizing the streets of America.
I feel like the culture right now, particularly the culture on Fox News, is scapegoating and demonizing those black kids. In fact, pretending that because one white boy was punched in the face by a black boy, that we literally have to invade the nation's capital. I feel like that's the bigger threat of the culture than just that some of them are breaking the law. If they feel sick about anything, it might be the old worn out tropes being trotted out yet again. So it's the music and the movies and the lack of paddling and the lack of the Bible. If it's the same thing that you think you've heard on right-wing media for the last 40 years, because it is, partially because their viewers are so old that I think it's just comforting for them to watch the reruns. I know I like occasionally throwing on an old episode of Frasier or something, but that's what they're doing right there. And so I want to understand, but I don't. So are they supposed to not carjack because they're terrified that they're gonna be machine gunned in the face? Or is it because earlier in the day, they were in biology class and the 10 Commandments were on the wall? Like, those feel like very different things. But you'll notice, by the way, the moving of the goalposts there. The liberals have gone so far into removing God from schools. What he's implying there is that previously schools used to be full of religion and we need to get back to that. No, there's always been a separation of church and state. There's always been the idea that we shouldn't have the religious documents of one religion being inflicted on everyone's kids, regardless of their own religion or whether they have any religion at all. That wasn't invented in the aughts. That goes back pretty far, actually, a couple hundred years. You should look it up. It's available on the internet. In any event, by the way, I can't say for sure if perhaps when he, that's Jack Brewer, former NFL defensive back, maybe when he was in school, if there had been the 10 Commandments, then maybe he wouldn't have run afoul of, for instance, insider trading laws. I don't know. Should we have more guns like on the floor of like the stock exchange? What's gonna stop this criminal behavior from happening? I don't know. Anyway. With that said, we're gonna move on to our final story in just a minute. Let's see, Cabbage says, what day is it? It's a gotcha question to Trump. He's had a lot of weird, we don't cover all of them. Like I briefly mentioned the Leningrad thing in passing, but the Leningrad thing was weird. Him saying that he was going to Russia when he was going to Alaska. Like these sorts of things don't even generally merit like coverage anymore, but they are strange and they're becoming pretty common.